But, David, are they keeping him out of playing the field because he can't do it, or they're afraid that he's going to hurt himself doing it?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, that's a legitimate question, but he only had one try, and he dropped the ball at first base, and it didn't go well, but it was one game. And you're not asking a lot from Alex to play first base here and there. It's one game here, maybe one or two games in the World Series.
Not to insult, I guess it will come across as insulting. Can he do worse than Headley defensively? So that's why I think it's more just he'll hurt himself, and now we'll lose the bat, too.
No, I don't think he can play third.
Yeah, I'm more talking about first base right now.
Right.
To share it down.
But even if you wanted to get him in the lineup just one game, could he play third base for one game in this series?
Well, potentially he could, but it would be, it would be a situation to where he could embarrass himself, and then the distraction would probably take away from his hitting. And Alex has made such a big deal out of buying into the DH this year and mentally not having to worry about defense and how much that's helped him offensively. And so, I can certainly understand the mindset from Alex, and he doesn't want to put himself in a position to be embarrassed. But nonetheless, this is a time of need because of Teixeira. And, I just think maybe they could have pushed him a little more to take more ground balls at first. And maybe in this game, because Greg Bird's a left-handed batter and Teixeira's gone, maybe that's the spot for him in a big series. Just one game.
Some broader scope question, but every time an American League team comes into a National League city, you have to make decisions like this. A-Rod is such a big part of this offense. Do you think this will ever be solved where there'll be one rule?
Well, that's a tough one. Yeah, probably not. It's just too passionate on both sides of the issue. The Mets, their pitchers are good hitting pitchers. They're so proud of it. A guy like Madison Bumgarner with the Giants. There are some diehard old schoolers that just will not give in on that particular issue. But the trend of the issue and the argument has been trending the opposite direction. I'll say that. It used to be get rid of the DH,
right.
Get rid of the DH in the American League, and now it's more add the DH in the National League. Although I still think there's no end in sight to this debate.
But I'm just looking at it. Last weekend of the season, Houston is going to be in Arizona. Now, I have to look up and down the roster to see how that hurts the Astros. But with 24/7 interleague play now, there's going to be a team battling for position that could lose their best offensive player because they now have to play in the National League the last week of the season. Why does the National League love it so much? The fans would rather see somebody who could legitimately hit. It can extend the careers of guys that you have under contract for a long time. I mean, if the Mets give Cespedes the 8-year contract, wouldn't they love to be able to know at the end of that contract they can DH him instead of playing him in the outfield? So, do you talk to anybody in the National League why they want it so badly?
Well, that's the argument for getting rid of the DH, without a doubt. You spelled it out perfectly, Don. If you think about it and if you argue objectively, because of roster construction and the issues you brought up, it really is an unfair playing advantage. It's not a level playing field, especially for who you're going to sign in the offseason, how you construct your roster, and it really does put the National League teams at a disadvantage in my mind. So if you own a National League team, if you're an owner, you would think you'd be more open to that argument. Now, the old school National League fans, that's a different story. The purists are never going to give in.
Talking with David Cohn, who'll be doing the game with me, and John Flaherty tonight on the Yes Network, Yankees against the Mets. And Don and I have been playing this game for the last couple of days. Yankees are one game out on the last day of the year. One game behind the Toronto Blue Jays. Do you start to knock in that one game? Because if the Blue Jays win, doesn't matter anyway. You still finished the game out. What do you do if you're one game out and waste Tanaka rather than save him for the wild card?
I think it depends on how much confidence you have in your number 2 starter and who that is. I'm not sure the Yankees know who that would be just yet. They would like it to be Michael Pineda, but Pineda's been a little uncertain as of late, and it's hard to put that much pressure on a 21-year-old. To me, I'm of the school, even though Severino probably has the best stuff this side of Tanaka, he's probably stuff-wise your number 2 starter right now. Do you want to put a 21-year-old in that position? Is there a chance that maybe he needs to be protected and out of that game? I like him coming in relief in that game, the first guy up in the pen, but to put all that pressure on a 21-year-old that you're counting on for the rest of his career, if he bombs in that game, is there going to be a residual effect that will emotionally affect him?
Let's talk about pressure. Likely the Mets are going to the playoffs, and the only starter they have that has any postseason experience is Colon, who might not be in the rotation. So what are these kids going to have to overcome come playoff time?
I think, there's a lot of things to overcome individually for these kids, going through it the first time, as you said. I think, secondly, it's the workload. what's the rotation going to be? Can you only use Matt Harvey once per series? The days of Jack Morris pitching game 1, 4, and 7 are over. You're just not going to see that. Not only are you not going to see that, you might just see some of these guys just once. The Syndergaard, can he pitch twice in a 7-game series? Can DeGrom? DeGrom's probably the one guy that probably can pitch twice. Steven Matz really comes to the forefront now. This start tonight is very important for him, how he presents himself, because he's not under innings limits. He's already had his time off because of the DL. So to me, Steven Matz is really important to the whole picture of the Mets rotation in the postseason.
Now, we've talked a lot about this. It's been talked about ad nauseum around the country, but Matt Harvey is going to start on Sunday, and although the Mets aren't saying exactly, looks like he's going to pitch 4 or 5 innings. You think this is the best compromise? Let's say the Mets really need that to get home field over the Dodgers. Do you want a starter going 4 or 5 innings? Because the middle of the Met bullpen might be the weakest part of the bullpen.
Well, that's very true. And you still need to win these games. You still have home field advantage at stake for the Mets, and home field advantage to me is a big deal. It is. That extra game, if it goes to Game 7, you have Game 7 at home. That means a lot, based on my experience, and especially in New York. Could you imagine Citi Field in a Game 7? Who pitches that game here for all the marbles? It means a lot. So, the Mets are lucky in a certain respect that this isn't a closer pennant race. Then these issues would be front and center, and, we're going to be out. Wait, you got to pitch this game. They have a little bit of a cushion now, and that's the best thing that could have happened to them with everything that's going on.
Syndergaard, the one concern is, can he pitch on the road? He's been a much different pitcher at Citi Field. Now, without really knowing the situation, do you remember any pitchers in your career that had similar splits like that? And did you find it to be more mental than physical?
A little bit of both. The thing you have to understand for a young pitcher and going on the road is that the ballparks are not familiar. From the bullpen mounds to the game mounds, the depth perception, just getting comfortable pitching in different ballparks for the first time is really challenging. It was challenging for me as a young pitcher. That's why you have to see a young pitcher go around the circuit a couple of times and pitch in opposing ballparks and see how he matches up. Give him time to adapt. It's a lot more difficult than you think it is. Just sometimes the backstop's further away from home plate. It affects your depth perception. Just feeling comfortable and getting your eye lines right and where you start your breaking pitches and how you kind of set yourself up in terms of depth perception and just comfort level.